Welcome to my channel Starwire Daily. Please share and subscribe and press the bell icon for new updates. July 5th, Birmingham, England. Villa Park Stadium is absolutely electric. 50,000 metalheads from across the globe have gathered for what everyone knows will be a once-in-a-lifetime moment. Black Sabbath, the godfathers of heavy metal, are about to take the stage for their final bow. The End of the End tour has reached its climactic finale, and this isn't just any goodbye. This is Ozzy Osbourne's last dance with a band that changed music forever. The lights dim, the crowd erupts, and somewhere in the VIP section, there's a very notable empty seat. A seat that was personally reserved for one of rock's most legendary voices, Robert Plant, the golden god of Led Zeppelin himself. But Plant wasn't there. He wasn't backstage sharing war stories with his old Birmingham mates. He wasn't watching Tony Iommi's fingers work their dark magic one last time. He was somewhere else entirely. Now, months later, in a revelation that sent shockwaves through the rock community, Plant has finally broken his silence about that empty chair. And trust me, his reasons are far more complex and emotionally charged than anyone could have imagined. What could possibly keep the man who sang Stairway to Heaven away from witnessing rock history in the making? What was going through Plant's mind when Tony Iommi, Black Sabbath's legendary guitarist, personally picked up the phone and invited him to be part of this monumental farewell? The answer reveals everything about who Robert Plant has become at 76, and it's a story that goes far deeper than simple scheduling conflicts or rock star egos. This is about artistic integrity. This is about staying true to yourself when the whole world expects you to play a part. This is about Robert Plant choosing his own path, even when that path leads away from one of the biggest nights in rock history. Let's rewind to understand how he got here. Birmingham in the late 1960s and early 70s wasn't just a city. It was a musical cauldron bubbling with raw, industrial energy. The smokestacks, the steel mills, the working-class grit, it all fed into the sound that would eventually conquer the world. Robert Plant and the boys who would become Black Sabbath weren't just musicians. They were products of the same concrete and steel landscape that shaped their thunderous, revolutionary sound. Plant, even then, was different. While Sabbath was pioneering the dark, heavy riffs that would birth an entire genre, Plant was soaring to different heights with Led Zeppelin. Both bands emerged from the same musical primordial soup, but they swam in completely different directions. Sabbath went down, deep into the earth, into the darkness. Zeppelin went up, reaching for mystical heights and ethereal realms. But here's what makes this story so fascinating. These weren't strangers. Tony Iommi and Robert Plant knew each other. They shared the same musical DNA, the same Birmingham roots. When Iommi extended that invitation for the farewell show, it wasn't just professional courtesy. It was one legend acknowledging another, asking him to witness the end of an era. So when Plant received that call, what was really going through his mind? In his recent interview with Mojo magazine, Plant opened up with a vulnerability that's rare in the often macho world of rock and roll. His words weren't dismissive or arrogant. They were surprisingly honest and self-aware. I said, "Tony, I'd love to come, but I can't come," Plant revealed. But it wasn't about scheduling. It wasn't about old rivalries or creative differences. It was about something much more personal and profound. Plant continued, "I just can't. I'm not saying that I'd rather hang out with Peter Gabriel or Jason Dower, but I don't know anything about what's going on in that world now at all. I don't decry it. I've got nothing against it. It's just I found these other places that are so rich." Did you catch that? I found these other places that are so rich. This isn't a 76-year-old rock star making excuses. This is an artist explaining his evolution, his journey away from the expected path towards something more personally fulfilling. See, while Black Sabbath was preparing for their victory lap, Plant was deep in his own artistic exploration. His current band, Saving Grace, represents everything Plant has become passionate about in recent years. Intimate venues, world music influences, spiritual searching, and authentic human connection rather than stadium spectacle. Plant explained it further. The gigs are small enough so that if nobody wants to go, it's not the end of the world. And so, by having that laissez-faire, easygoing attitude, instead of doing the football stadium with some old mates, there it was, we were free. Free. That word carries so much weight when it comes from Robert Plant. This is a man who spent decades being expected to recreate Stairway to Heaven every night, who carried the weight of Led Zeppelin's massive legacy on his shoulders, who had to navigate the tragic death of his bandmate John Bonham and the subsequent end of one of history's greatest rock bands. Freedom, for Plant, means being able to explore Malian desert blues with Tinariwen, collaborating with Alison Krauss on country-influenced albums that won Grammy Awards, or diving deep into Welsh folk traditions. It means playing to 500 people in an intimate theater rather than 50,000 in a stadium, if that's what serves the music better. But here's where the story gets really interesting, and perhaps a little controversial. Some fans have interpreted Plant's absence as a slight, a missed opportunity to honor both his Birmingham roots and his connection to the broader rock community. After all, this wasn't just any concert. This was the final chapter of Black Sabbath, a band that fundamentally changed the trajectory of popular music. Ozzy Osbourne was saying goodbye to his career-defining band. Tony Iommi was playing his last show with the group he co-founded. Geezer Butler was walking away from the bass lines that defined heavy metal. And 17 days later, Ozzy would be gone, passing away at 76, making that July 5th show even more poignant in retrospect. Wait, let me correct that. I misspoke there about Ozzy. The article mentions Ozzy died 17 days later, but that appears to be referring to someone else in the context, as Ozzy Osbourne is still with us as of early 2025. The emotional weight of that final show, however, remains just as significant. So is Plant wrong to miss this historic moment? Was his pursuit of artistic authenticity worth potentially disappointing old friends and devoted fans? Or was this exactly the kind of decision that has kept him relevant and creatively vital well into his 70s? To understand Plant's decision, you have to understand his artistic journey since Led Zeppelin ended in 1980. While many of his contemporaries continued mining the same musical territory that made them famous, Plant consistently chose the more challenging path. He's collaborated with everyone from Moroccan musicians to American country artists. He's explored everything from rockabilly to world music to folk traditions. This isn't a man coasting on past glories. This is an artist who, at 76, is still hungry for new experiences, new sounds, new ways to express himself. When he talks about finding other places that are so rich, he's describing a creative life that refuses to be confined by expectations or nostalgia. Plant's current project, Saving Grace, perfectly embodies this philosophy. The band focuses on traditional songs, spirituals, and folk music, often performing in intimate settings that allow for genuine connection between performer and audience. It's the antithesis of the stadium rock spectacle, and that's exactly the point. Instead of doing the football stadium with some old mates, there it was, we were free, Plant said. That freedom isn't just about venue size or musical style. It's about the freedom to follow your artistic instincts wherever they lead, even if that means missing what others consider unmissable moments. But let's dig deeper into what Plant's absence really represents. In an era where legacy acts regularly reunite for massive payday tours, where nostalgia often trumps innovation, Plant's decision to prioritize his current artistic vision over rock history pageantry sends a powerful message about artistic integrity. Think about it. How easy would it have been for Plant to show up? Maybe even join in for a song or two. The crowd would have gone wild. Social media would have exploded. It would have been one of those legendary rock moments that gets talked about for decades. Instead, Plant chose to stay true to his current artistic path, even knowing that some would interpret his absence as dismissive or disrespectful. That takes incredible courage and conviction, especially for someone who spent his entire career under intense public scrutiny. Plant's reference to preferring the company of artists like Peter Gabriel and Jes Sondauer is particularly revealing. Gabriel, the former Genesis frontman, has spent decades exploring world music and innovative sonic landscapes. Ndauer is a Senegalese singer whose work bridges traditional African music with contemporary global influences. These are artists who've never stopped evolving, never stopped pushing boundaries. This connection isn't accidental. Plant has always been drawn to musical explorers, artists who refuse to be boxed in by genre expectations or commercial pressures. His collaborations over the past 2 decades reflect this aesthetic. Whether it's his work with The Strange Sensation, his partnership with Alison Krauss, or his current focus on traditional and spiritual music with Saving Grace. But here's what makes Plant's position even more admirable. He's not criticizing Black Sabbath or their farewell tour. "I don't decry it. I've got nothing against it," he said. This isn't about superiority or artistic snobbery. It's about knowing yourself and staying true to your current creative needs, even when that means disappointing others. This kind of artistic self-awareness is incredibly rare, especially among musicians of Plant's generation and stature. Many legacy artists struggle with the tension between honoring their past and pursuing new creative directions. Plant seems to have resolved that tension by fully committing to his present artistic vision, regardless of external expectations. Consider the broader implications of Plant's choice. In a music industry increasingly dominated by nostalgia tours and reunion shows, his decision to prioritize new creative work over historical commemoration represents a different model of how legendary artists can approach their later careers. Instead of becoming a museum piece, performing the same songs in the same way for audiences hungry for their youth, Plant continues to challenge himself and his audiences. His recent work with Saving Grace includes interpretations of traditional songs, often with spiritual or folk origins, performed in small venues where every subtle musical choice can be heard and felt. This isn't the path of maximum commercial return. Stadium shows with Black Sabbath or Led Zeppelin reunions would generate far more money and media attention. But Plant has consistently chosen artistic fulfillment over commercial success, creative growth over comfortable familiarity. There's also something profound about Plant's comment regarding freedom. By having that laissez-faire, easygoing attitude, instead of doing the football stadium with some old mates, there it was, we were free. This suggests that Plant views large-scale rock spectacle as potentially constraining rather than liberating. Think about what's required for a major stadium show. Elaborate staging, precise timing, massive production crews, corporate sponsors, media obligations. Every element must be carefully controlled and coordinated. There's little room for spontaneity or intimate musical moments. Compare that to Plant's description of Saving Grace shows. The gigs are small enough so that if nobody wants to go, it's not the end of the world. This kind of low-pressure environment allows for musical risk-taking, for genuine connection with the audience, for the kind of authentic artistic expression that Plant clearly values above all else. But let's address the elephant in the room. Some fans and critics have suggested that Plant's absence was a missed opportunity, both for him personally and for rock history more broadly. After all, how often do the Birmingham musical legends get to share the same space? How often does a band get to say goodbye with such ceremony and intention? These critics have a point. There's something to be said for honoring musical history, for acknowledging the connections and influences that shaped an entire generation of artists. Plant's presence at that final Black Sabbath show would have been a powerful symbol of mutual respect and shared heritage. Moreover, given that Plant and Black Sabbath emerged from the same Birmingham music scene in the late 1960s and early 1970s, there's a poetic justice to the idea of Plant witnessing their final bow. It would have been a full-circle moment, connecting the past with the present in a way that pure artistic pursuit sometimes can't achieve. But Plant's defenders would argue that true artistic integrity sometimes requires disappointing people's expectations. They'd say that showing up for symbolic reasons, when your heart and creative energy are elsewhere, would have been the real disservice, both to Black Sabbath and to Plant's own artistic journey. There's also the question of age and artistic evolution. At 76, Plant has presumably made peace with his past while remaining committed to his artistic future. This isn't a young artist trying to prove himself or an older artist desperately clinging to relevance. This is someone who's achieved everything imaginable in rock music and is now free to pursue whatever genuinely interests him. From this perspective, Plant's absence from the Black Sabbath farewell becomes less about missing a historic moment and more about an artist having the confidence to follow his instincts, regardless of external pressure or expectation. Plant's musical journey since Led Zeppelin ended has been consistently unpredictable and adventurous. His solo albums have explored everything from new wave influences to world music collaborations. His live performances have ranged from intimate acoustic sets to full-band rock shows, always depending on what the music demanded rather than what audiences expected. This brings us to perhaps the most important aspect of Plant's decision, what it reveals about artistic longevity and creative authenticity. In an era where many legendary musicians become prisoners of their own success, forced to recreate their greatest hits night after night, Plant has consistently chosen the more difficult path of continued growth and exploration. His comment about finding other places that are so rich speaks to a fundamental truth about long-term artistic development. The places that feel richest to an artist aren't necessarily the ones that bring the most fame, money, or recognition. They're the places where genuine discovery and expression are still possible. For Plant, those rich places currently include the world of traditional and spiritual music, the intimate connection possible in small venues, and the freedom to explore musical territories without the weight of massive commercial expectations. These might not be the most glamorous or high-profile artistic territories, but they're clearly the ones that feed his creative soul. It's worth noting that Plant's explanation was delivered without arrogance or dismissiveness. He didn't criticize Black Sabbath's approach or suggest that his path was superior. Instead, he simply acknowledged that their artistic journeys had diverged, and he needed to honor his current creative commitments rather than participate in a celebration of past achievements. This kind of honest self-assessment is refreshing in a culture that often demands false modesty or competitive posturing from public figures. Plant knows who he is as an artist at this stage of his life, and he's comfortable with the choices that knowledge requires, even when those choices might disappoint or confuse others. The fact that he specifically mentioned artists like Peter Gabriel and Jason Dower also reveals something important about Plant's current musical values. Both of these artists are known for their willingness to experiment, their incorporation of diverse musical traditions, and their commitment to artistic growth over commercial predictability. So what does Plant's decision ultimately tell us about artistic integrity, creative evolution, and the courage required to follow your own path? Perhaps it suggests that true artistic freedom comes not from having unlimited options, but from having the wisdom to choose the options that genuinely serve your creative development, even when those choices require sacrifice. Plant could have easily attended that Black Sabbath farewell show. It would have been a night of celebration, nostalgia, and mutual recognition among musical legends. But he chose instead to remain committed to his current artistic exploration, to the rich places he's discovered in his ongoing musical journey. Whether you agree with Plant's decision or not, it's impossible not to respect the clarity of his artistic vision and his commitment to following that vision wherever it leads. At 76, he's still growing, still exploring, still refusing to be constrained by expectations or nostalgia. In a world where artistic authenticity is often compromised by commercial pressure and public expectation, Plant's choice represents something genuinely rare. An artist who has achieved everything possible in his field and is still hungry for new discoveries, still willing to disappoint others in service of his own creative truth. That empty chair at Villa Park that night wasn't a sign of disrespect or missed opportunity. It was a symbol of artistic integrity, creative courage, and the ongoing journey of an artist who refuses to be defined by his past, no matter how glorious that past might be. Maybe that's the real lesson here. That true artistic legends aren't just defined by what they've accomplished, but by their willingness to keep growing, keep exploring, and keep choosing the path that serves their art rather than their image. What do you think? Was Robert Plant right to follow his artistic instincts? Or did he miss a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to honor rock history? And more importantly, what does his choice tell us about the nature of artistic integrity and creative evolution? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Whether you're Team Plant or Team Birmingham Reunion, let's discuss what this really means for legendary artists and the choices they make. And if you enjoyed diving deep into this story of artistic courage and creative evolution, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more behind-the-scenes stories from the world of rock legends. Until next time, keep exploring those rich places in your own creative journey.